Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. A disturbing case out of Detroit. A 42-year-old man is charged with first-degree murder and a sex crime charges after the disappearance and killing of a 13-year-old girl, Isiah Harris. Isiah went missing back in February 2024. Her body was never found. Prosecutors say the suspect, Jarvis Butts, got her pregnant and murdered her. But he's also the father of 5 of Isiah's cousins. He is also facing charges for allegedly sexually abusing 2 other girls under the age of 13. He previously spent time in prison for sexually assaulting a child. The judge overseeing the preliminary hearing for the trial says everyone in Isiah's life failed her.
Several people failed her. I don't know where her mother is. I don't know anything other than that she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given the adequate attention and love. I don't know where her father is. I don't have any mention of him in her life, no presence. 2, Cordell, aka King, and all the men who saw Jarvis Butts hanging out and always around these young girls, including Isiah. And his 9-year-old daughter going up to the shop to clean up his shop. The school counselor who never showed up, or the person who was supposed to show up if that counselor was absent, after Isiah was on the floor on the day she went missing, saying that she needed to speak to someone and speak to a counselor. There's no mention of CPS, but I wonder what their involvement was over the years, because this was not just a one-year thing. There are text messages at least from 2022. And how were there 2 women in that house who have birthed children themselves who did not notice that Isiah was pregnant, and I believe she was, and not having her period anymore?
Tonight on Angela After Dark, we talk about children like Isiah who are neglected and invisible to their families and the community. Keep it here. Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We just heard some of the heartbreaking details surrounding the disappearance of Isiah Harris. Jarvis Butts, a 42-year-old, is accused of getting her pregnant and killing the 13-year-old. We just heard a judge say everyone who crossed paths with Isiah failed her, including family members and friends, when all of the red flags were right there, according to that judge. And sadly, Isiah isn't alone. She and other invisible children in families and communities are suffering. Dr. Angela Jones here to talk about that tonight. When we heard the judge, and the judge was spot on.
She was.
You know, she said, you as a family member had no emotion about her disappearance, that she could be dead. You as a family member never paid attention to her. Why did she have to reach out to a 42-year-old man to tell him, I need pads? And you're living in a house full of women.
Right.
So how do we get to that point with our children in this community and around the country?
It's a culture, right? Like, it's a community culture. Obviously, he was someone of power in that area where people covered for him, you know, did things for him. I don't know what kind of influence he had, but he was the guy to do things for or to get things from. She knew that he was the person to ask for a feminine hygiene product rather than asking the women in her house. Every woman in that house probably has been invisible at some point in their life. So for
the aunt has 5 children with this man.
Correct. And you can only imagine how invisible she feels, including the children. I mean, I feel for the children that are affected by him and his own children. But the invisibility is something that has happened since before she came on that, before she came on, and before this whole story. It's just a devastating environment to live in.
How do you break that cycle, though, if her aunts, if her mother, they all feel invisible?
Including the system. The system is invisible too. They get how many calls a day from schools, from neighbors, CPS reports, and there's only so much they can actually do. The families, the neighbors, everyone covers everyone up. So that's why when the judge was reading him his rights, telling him about himself, she was listing everyone who basically ignored her. She didn't come home. You went to bed and didn't even think about she's not home. And these children, the ones that are forgotten, the ones that are not checked on, on. The ones that are not called, looked upon, are the ones that predators look for. Those are the ones that they want to seek out. The ones that have involved parents or involved family, they're not usually the aim for predators like him.
And of course, here on TV, in the media, we all scream, how dare this predator touch this child? How dare this old guy touch this child? But the reality is, in urban and rural areas where there are individuals where we see older men dating young children, girls under 18, under 16, and no one says anything.
Absolutely
and it becomes accepted.
They close their eyes and pretend like they didn't see it. And the stories are usually like, well, I had to do that, or that happened to me, and look at me, I'm fine. And so they're just passing on that generational trauma down to each generation, and it's an invisible generation. And then we wonder why something like this happens. It's on the news. We're hearing everyone who'd ignore her, and we're listening like, how can they do that? But this is unfortunately the environment that they are in. I'm not giving it an excuse whatsoever, but she is not the only invisible one. She is the one that is missing. But like they said, there are other victims that have been under his hand, under him, that everyone has turned the cheek pretending like it didn't happen. And so it's sad, it's devastating, knowing, like, you see her picture, she looked like she was vibrant, full of life, and she had no one.
Sad situation. Dr. Angela Jones, thank you for joining us tonight. It's a problem we need to work out in this community, around this country. Just sad. Still ahead.